Today, we are diving into a pretty startling scenario laid out in our source material about a hypothetical military operation. We're talking U.S. commandos capturing a foreign head of state. Honestly, it reads like a thriller, and we are going to unpack every single piece of it. Okay, first things first, and this is super important. Everything we're about to walk through is part of a fictional scenario. It's a thought experiment, really, designed to explore some very real questions about power and international law. So with that framework in mind, let's get into it. All right, let's just jump right into the action. I want you to picture this. The date is January 3rd, 2026. A secret mission, codenamed Absolute Resolve, is a go. And the target? Well, it's the sitting president of Venezuela. So the source paints this picture of just insane military precision. First, a cyber attack hits, and boom, Caracas is plunged into total darkness. Under that cover, U.S. helicopters are flying just 100 feet off the water, totally evading radar. Then, Delta Force commandos rappel onto President Maduro's roof. They breach his bedroom, and they grab him just as he's about to hit a safe room. The entire operation, from the moment they hit the roof to the capture, is over in less than 5 minutes. Unbelievable. So, you might be wondering, how is this all being viewed from the White House? Well, in a pretty wild quote, the source material gives us the U.S. president's perspective on the live feed. He says, "I watched it literally like I was watching a TV show." Just think about that for a second. It's an incredibly detached way to describe an event that would absolutely shake the world. An operation like this, even a hypothetical one, just blows everything wide open, right? It forces us to grapple with some massive questions. And the source material really boils it all down to two fundamental ones. First, what could possibly be the justification for kidnapping the elected leader of another country? And second, if something like this can actually happen, what does that say about the future of global politics? You know, the rules that are supposed to keep everything in check? These are the two big questions we're going to dig into. So, how would you even begin to justify an action this extreme to the rest of the world? Well, the official public reason, according to the source, is all built around a criminal indictment that's been on the books for a while. The official story they're putting out is based on this serious indictment from the Southern District of New York. It accuses Maduro of a whole list of things: narcoterrorism, conspiring to bring cocaine into the U.S., weapons charges, and it alleges he's been at this since way back in 1999. So on the surface, they're framing it as a simple law enforcement action. But here's where the source material starts to pull at that thread. It asks a really simple but critical question. If this whole thing is about stopping the flow of drugs into America, is Venezuela even the main problem? And this is where that official story really starts to look a bit shaky. Just take a look at these numbers. The whole justification is focused on the 200 to 250 metric tons of cocaine from Venezuela. But the source points to data showing that Guatemala exported around 1,400 metric tons. I mean, that's more than 5 times as much. So if your goal is really to stop drug trafficking, why the laser focus on Venezuela? The math just doesn't seem to add up. So, if that drug trafficking explanation feels a little thin, the source suggests there is a much more powerful motive at play, and it has nothing to do with cocaine and absolutely everything to do with crude oil. And this chart right here shows you exactly why. Venezuela isn't just some oil-producing nation. It is sitting on top of the world's largest proven crude oil reserves. We're talking over 300 billion barrels. Just look at that comparison. It's more than Saudi Arabia, more than Iran. This isn't just a resource, it's a strategic prize of almost unimaginable value. And this source points to another quote from the U.S. president that seems to just lay the real motive bare. He apparently called Venezuela's decision to nationalize its own oil industry the greatest theft in the history of America. Just think about that framing for a second. The idea that a country taking control of its own natural resources is somehow stealing from America. That perspective is pretty revealing. And as you can see from this timeline, this is not some new conflict that popped up overnight. The tension has been building for a century. U.S. companies were there from the beginning in 1922. But when Venezuela started to take back its industry, especially under Hugo Chavez, the relationship completely soured, leading to U.S. sanctions and years of economic pressure. So this hypothetical raid isn't presented as some random event, but as the explosive finale to a decades-long struggle for control. So here's the crucial point. It doesn't really matter what the motive is. whether it's drugs or oil, because the source argues that this hypothetical action just steamrolls right over American domestic law and the absolute bedrock principles of international law. First, let's just talk about the legal problems right at home. The U.S. Constitution is crystal clear. Congress has the power to declare war. And let's be real, an operation like this is an act of war. But in this scenario, the president just does it, completely on his own, totally bypassing Congress. So how do they justify it? They just relabel it. They call it a law enforcement function, not a war. Okay, now let's zoom out to the world stage. UN Charter Article 2.4 is basically the golden rule of international relations. It's the law that says you just can't use your military to invade another country, period. According to the source's analysis, this operation doesn't just bend that rule, it completely shatters it. And the fallout in this scenario is immediate and it is severe. Major countries in Latin America and Europe put out a joint statement calling it a dangerous precedent. The UN Secretary-General calls it out as a clear violation of the Charter, and global powers like China and Russia condemn it in no uncertain terms. The U.S. basically finds itself completely alone on the world stage. So what are the long-term consequences here? That brings us to our final section, because the source argues that the real damage from something like this isn't just the immediate crisis. No, it's the incredibly dangerous precedent it sets for the future of the entire global order. The source actually gives this a name, New Age colonialism, and it describes a simple but really dangerous playbook. Step 1, find a country with resources you want. Step 2, cook up a fake reason to invade, like drug trafficking. Step 3, seize control of those resources. It's really just colonialism with a 21st century PR spin. And this slide right here gets to the ultimate danger. The source warns this basically creates a might makes right world. Because think about it. If the most powerful country on the planet can just ignore international law whenever it wants, what message does that send to everybody else? It's a green light for any other powerful nation to do the exact same thing, effectively tearing down the whole rules-based system that, for all its flaws, has kept major global wars at bay. And so, this whole hypothetical story leaves us with one final and, frankly, unsettling question. The source material isn't just telling a thrilling story, it's sounding an alarm. It's asking us to really think about what our world starts to look like when the most powerful nations decide that the rules, the very rules built over generations to keep the peace, simply don't apply to them anymore.